Welcome back to 24 Hour Sports, where we appreciate everyone who tunes in. Now it's time to talk about some sports and maybe even your favorite team. And it might be good or it might be bad. But the only thing I'm guaranteeing is that a time will be had. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe down below. And let's dive into the show. The NFC South has been trying to do their thing. They saw the Tampa Bay Buccaneers make the divisional round of the playoffs. They said, hold up, we got to get a little bit of that. We see the Carolina Panthers making the moves that they're making, trying to go all in for their young quarterback. And Bryce Young, we're going to talk about the Carolina Panthers. We see the New Orleans Saints, they're trying to do their thing. They're waiting on the draft. But today I want to talk about a team that kind of started a little bit of buzz last night. One of those teams in the NFC South. And as we get into this, NFC circles have arrived at their new opinion of new Atlanta Falcons head coach Raheem Morris after the Atlanta Falcons released his first team speech for their offseason program on multiple social platforms. And for the most part, the reaction has been good. Now, there was kind of a mixed reaction when we saw Raheem Morris named the head coach of the Atlanta Falcons. Why not Jim Harbaugh? Why not Bill Belichick? Why not such and such and such? Why not Mike Vrabel? But I think looking at what the direction of the team is, of course, bringing along Zach Robinson as the offensive coordinator coming over from that Los Angeles system. I think that when you look at Arthur Blank and what this team wants to do, I think that they made a good decision at the head coaching realm. Now, also, we have to tie it into the fact that when Raheem Morris got the stint with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, he wasn't dealt a fair hand. So I think now this is really the opportunity where you say, okay, this is your franchise. You're the head coach. You're the leader of this group of men. Let's get after it. Now, I want to talk about what we're going to talk about in this video, and we're going to break down some of the key pieces of this interview as I share my thoughts, what this means, and how much optimism that Falcons fans should really have after coming away from this interview. After listening to it, watching it, I'm going to drop the link to the full interview down in the description, but there are just so many things that we have to get into. So I want to dive into the first quote by Raheem Morris, and we're going to listen at it here.
And I want to be world class in everything we do, and not just I'm talking about Terry. I'm talking about all hands on deck with all our coaches. I'm talking about Ryan. I'm talking about Kyle Smith.
So now, just reflecting on this quote and what does this actually mean, I think the ability to command the ear. Like I said, as a head coach, not only are you coaching and managing all football operations, that's offense, defense, special teams, you're the guy who's overseeing everything within this organization. Of course, Raheem Morris, he's a defensive-minded guy. He's going to be heavily involved with the defense. But the first thing he said really got to me a little bit, thinking about that first impression, how important that first impression is. He said, I want to be world-class in everything we do, and not just I. Now, you probably say, okay, football games, Super Bowls aren't won in introduction speeches at off-season programs, but I'll come back with that and say the teams that we see constantly have these high levels of success, we think about Kansas City. We think about those old New England teams. These teams who constantly have that level of success is built through OTAs. It's built through training camp, through these off-season programs, and you don't win Super Bowls at this point in the season, but you build that foundation to say, okay, even if we start off the season slow, even if we start off the season hot, we have a foundation and kind of a standard that this football team has to meet, so we can know, okay, we're a little bit below our standard right now. Let's go ahead and raise this. We're at our standards. Let's keep doing what we're doing. Let's keep doing what we preached in the offseason. So I think just looking at that, preaching excellence, not only from the coaching staff, but from the front office, from everybody through and through and through. And he also touched on mental health a little bit. He talked about the relationships a little bit, but I want to get into his next quote because I think this is also equally as important to me. Now, let's take a listen.
I want a world-class football education, and that's going to come from these coaches, right? These coaches we brought in, I got a lot of respect for, and I believe in them.
Now, diving into that second quote is something that I think, like I said, you want to see that reflected not only from the head coach to the players. You want to see it reflected through those positional coaches, through those guys who are probably going to have more intimate time with these players, more delegated time to these players. That's in the installs. That's in the meeting rooms. That's in those little types of things that you see as you build football teams where the head coach, he has to deal with, okay, some of the politics, some of the press conferences, but these positional coaches, you want to have a world-class football education. We saw what the Dallas Cowboys did. Another team I want to point to, you see Trayvon Diggs lead the league in interceptions, then you see DeRon Bland lead the league in pick sixes. Al Harris, the cornerback coach at the time, that's not a coincidence. That's what you see when you have guys in place who understand the position, position, who can coach the position, and who can help great players become even better. So I think looking at that, you have, of course, AJ Terrell, you have Jesse Bates, you have Bijan Robinson, but having these coaches with a world-class football education, that's not only going to help player development, but it's going to help team development and scheming for the opponent. So you look at what he said here. These coaches we brought in, I got a lot of respect for it, and I believe in them as far as everything we're talking about from an educational standpoint and all the stuff that you guys want so that we can be the best that we can every day. That says it right there. We want to be the best that we possibly can be every day. So I like that quote. I like what he said right there. But I want to get into this last one because this is the one that might have some Atlanta Falcons fans hype. This is the one that builds that type of optimism. You look at it and say, okay, I'm ready to play. Let me strap up my pads and go get it. Let's listen.
Hustling, right? Hustling. It is the first thing that we have to do. It has to be our foundation. We got to outrun the South.
So you hear it. And like I said, the ability to command the ear in the first impression is everything. Understanding what the main goal is, understanding these relationships, understanding this level of education we want throughout the entirety of the facility. These are all things you have to talk about, but he kept the main thing the main thing. He said, we've got to outrun the South. Let's be real. We win the South, we get in the playoffs. You get in the playoffs, you don't know what the F can happen. So you're looking at, okay, Carolina Panthers, Tampa Bay Bucks, New Orleans Saints. These are all teams that are trying to get after it. But the Atlanta Falcons, Raheem Morris, Arthur Blank, he wants to outrun the South. And of course, once you get into the dance, this is something I've always said. I get into the dance, it's time to tango. I don't care who I'm going against. I don't care if I'm the 4th seed, the 5th seed. I don't care if I won a division. Of course, you want to try to win the South, but the point stands. Once you get into that dance, anything can happen. So that's what he's looking at right there. And the last thing I want to close out with is, I say, are the Atlanta Falcons worth the hype? Is this interview just some coaches speak? Of course, you want to have a coach who can command the room. That's one of the things you look at in the interview process. But does he have a foundation built around him? Along with some of the things in the draft we're going to talk about in multiple videos and also in this one. Does he have a foundation and a structure which can relay the message on the football field? And I talk about these major additions. Raheem Morris, Zach Robinson, offensive coordinator. Worked with the passing game over there in Los Angeles. Big time guy. He's going to bring that West Coast system, that McVay scheme that we see a lot of teams copycatting. Shanahan's system, Mike McDaniel's system. It's that West Coast getting these guys on the perimeter and letting them play football. Jimmy Lake, defensive coordinator. He's worked with some very good football teams. He's worked in the Pac-12. He's done a lot of different things, so you bring him in there. And like I talk about these pieces, Kirk Cousins. Some people may not be fully happy with the contract, and that's perfectly fine. But what I can tell you is Kirk Cousins is a good football player, and I've said it for the longest. We always talk about Justin Jefferson. Don't get me wrong, he's a top 5 receiver, but he had somebody delivering him that football. Jordan Addison, he had somebody delivering him that football. TJ Hawkinson, the same. So I look at all of these guys, and I think you bring in Kirk Cousins. He's obviously an upgrade. I think that's undisputed right now when we look at the quarterback situation last year compared to what you have now. He is an upgrade. And then you look at Darnell Mooney. He's another guy who can come in there. And I think for the Chicago Bears, Darnell Mooney, and of course, commanding what he was going to command, because they're looking at, okay, maybe we can get a wide receiver 3 in the draft. Maybe we can get it elsewhere. Is Tyler Scott going to develop over there in Chicago? So that's what they're looking at right there. And with Darnell Mooney, the relationship, it just wasn't a fit. It didn't work. It worked for a couple years, and then we look at last year. Darnell Mooney banged up a little bit. Didn't have the level of production you wanted to see out of a guy like that making a leap. But I think getting that fresh environment, having a new chance with the Atlanta Falcons, and of course, I think the expectations are different than what they were in Chicago, because last year you looked at DJ Moore, Darnell Mooney. But now I think when you look at this, you say, okay, Drake London, Rondale Moore, Kyle Pitts, Darnell Mooney, you're not the focal point of this offense, but you can get in there and you can get 750 to 800 if everything clicks. Now, Charlie Warner, a blocking tight end, can be used as your wing, can be used as a move or a split tight end. So you think about that now. Do we want to say, okay, let's go 2-by-1, still have 11 personnel, but we also got Kyle Pitts, who's the big slot flexed out of there. Or we can say, okay, let's get a little bit fancy. Let's go 3-by-2. Let's empty out the set. And we got Kyle Pitts, we got Rondale Moore, we got Darnell Mooney, Drake London, a lot of different things you can say. Also, we could still have a guy in the backfield. Or we could say, Bijan Robinson, go out there and line up in the slot. Other side, we got Darnell Mooney, Rondale, and then we can also have Kyle Pitts isolated, Drake London isolated, so many things. I don't want to get to the technical side of it, but you see where I'm going with that. When I say the endless amount of possibilities for this offense is Zach Robinson, then I get to the offensive line. I like Caleb McGarry. I like Christian Lindstrom. He got his bag, deservedly so. So I'm looking at that and I say, okay, you still have Bijan, Tyler Algier in the backfield, Drake London on the perimeter, Rondell Moore. These are the key pieces who I look at in additions for this football team, and also guys who are returning. Now, defensively, AJ Terrell, Jesse Bates, Grady Jarrett, Troy Anderson looking to be healthy this season, freakish athletic linebacker, and also the last thing I have, you have 8 draft picks in the 2024 NFL draft. So I'm not trying to sell you a dream, but you're looking at this football team and you see, okay, I like the Carolina Panthers. I like the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I like the New Orleans Saints, but there's no reason the Atlanta Falcons shouldn't have a dog in this fight. And there's no reason that if Raheem Morris connects on everything that he said in this interview, Zach Robinson, he connects on everything. Kirk Cousins, he's fully healthy. He lives up to the contract. There's no reason this team shouldn't have an opportunity to dance. So I want to know what you think down below in these comments. Is this fluff or is this real? Is it worth the hype after Raheem Morris's major and impactful first impression that we saw in this interview? Once again, this is 24 Hour Sports with Daryl Green. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. We'll be back with more, but for now,